Good evening / afternoon, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV. Look, we have a live shot of Vatican City right there. I guess more specifically, St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. Maybe I should put St. Peter's Square in the description right here. I'll put it up there to be more specific. St. Peter's Square, Vatican City. Oops. So, only 2 days until the conclave at which Cardinals will choose the new Pope. Oh my gosh, the first vote takes place on Wednesday. How many votes will there be? How long will it take? I don't know. We're going to talk about it on this stream. This is our live conclave preview. So I appreciate you joining us for our preview. We're going to talk about how the conclave works. We're going to talk about who the leading contenders are. We're going to talk about some new challenges that the new Pope will face. But the new head of the Catholic Church is being chosen. I believe there are 1.4 million Catholics, aren't there? About 1.4 billion Roman Catholics. About 1.4 billion. Roman Catholic Church. So that's obviously a lot of people. No smoke yet. I do have a shot of the chimney. Which I'll show you right now. But unfortunately, you can barely see the chimney. So if it were, the chimney is on the Sistine Chapel is right around like in here, but you can't see it right now because it's dark. And I've actually bumped the brightness up, but it's right in there. But you're not going to see anything anyway. You will see something when they have votes. You'll see black smoke come out if they don't elect a new pope, and white smoke if they do elect a new pope. Somebody asked the time. It's 11:36 p.m. there. I can put a clock up if people want. Maybe I should put the clock up. All right, give me 2 seconds, I'll put a clock up too. Give people a little more time to join the stream anyway. All right, so we want to do this local time. St. Peter's Square. Vatican City time. And it's going to be that. There, I got it. Okay, so what I'll do now is instead of having that thing up there, I'm going to put on the screen, where is it here? This. Where is it? Is that it? There, I got it up there. There you go. But maybe what I'll do is I'll do this. Is that better? Yeah. All right, we're all set up. We're all good. We're all set up to go. Anyways, you're looking at the roof of the Sistine Chapel, but you can't see the chimney right now because it's too dark, but nothing's coming out of it anyway. We'll talk about that as well. All right, there's that. Okay, So we're going to be taking your comments on the air during this preview. We're going to talk about this process. Doesn't happen that often. Only when there's a new pope. So let's get into this. And before I get into this, I want to say thank you to our moderators who are here. We have moderating right now over there on YouTube, Roberts May Queen and Ruth Krafasi, Janet B. Thank you for moderating. Also, hang on a moment here. Over there on Twitch, we have moderating right now Matthew Kohai 3 and Surly Dev. Linda Belk, Larry, Misha moderate for us on X, and on Facebook we have K. Larry Body, Christina Neal moderating. Thanks to all of our moderators. And thanks also to R. Riebling, our new member. Thank you. And PZ Papa Zulu, thanks for your support as well. Anna says, I just finished watching the film Conclave. That's actually, I've seen most of it. I'll probably finish it tonight. But that's a nice introduction to the kind of thing that happens. I actually have an article or two here that talks about how the film compares to real life, but gives you a basic idea of what's going on. So these high-ranking Catholic officials, the Cardinals, will be getting together. Those of them who are eligible to vote will be getting together in the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City, and starting on Wednesday, they will have a series of votes for the new Pope. And eventually they'll choose someone. So we're going to talk about how that works. Ariane says she saw it. A number of our viewers have seen it. But it's a very interesting process. And also, I think the whole process is interesting. I don't think you need to be a Catholic to be interested in this event. I mean, it's an important event anyway, because they're choosing the head of this church, of which 1.4 billion people are members. But it's also just interesting to see this process that has been going on for, centuries and centuries. It's been going on for. And we're going to give you some historical background on it. I'm looking this up. The first official conclave, the Vatican says, was in 1276. But we can talk about some of the specifics. The first one to be held in the Sistine Chapel was in 1492. Colo Radio says, where can I place a bet? So we're going to talk about, one thing we're going to talk about is people betting on this. We're going to talk about who the betting favorites are and who are seen as the most likely people to be elected. And, that'll have an impact, certainly have a significant impact on the direction of the church in years to come. All right, so let's first start out with talking about basically what's going on at this conclave here. Let's talk about that. I have some different things to show you. Let's start out with some basics here. Oh, see, Susie Hickson, thanks Susie, says, as a Catholic, this is my Super Bowl. All right, ready? What is a conclave? What to know about the secretive process to elect the next pope? By the way, the picture on the right from AP is of cardinals. And many of the cardinals are eligible to vote in the conclave, and they will be choosing the next pope. I think a pope doesn't have to be a cardinal, but it is highly likely it will be. So what is a conclave? A conclave is the centuries-old election of a pope that derives its name from the Italian conclave, with a key, to underscore that cardinals are sequestered until they find a winner. How about that? Cardinals have no contact with the outside world after the master of liturgical ceremonies utters the words extra omnes, the Latin phrase for all out, to ask all those present except the cardinal electors to leave the Sistine Chapel to begin the voting process. That's going to happen on Wednesday. In between votes, the cardinals will be staying at the Domus Santa Marta Hotel in Vatican City, and possibly another nearby Vatican residence, since there are more cardinal electors than Santa Marta hotel rooms. So this gets started on Wednesday. And I mean, right now, the current time is 11:44 p.m. on Monday night. I want to say it's about 36 hours till the whole process gets started. It begins in the afternoon on Wednesday. And the first vote, so just to pause for a second, I was looking at an article the USA Today had an article about when the votes were expected. And according to them, they said that the first vote is expected to finish around 7 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday night local time, which would be 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time U.S. That's the first time we're expected to see smoke coming out of the Sistine Chapel chimney. Black for no pope chosen yet, white for a pope chosen. So I am planning on being on the air on Wednesday. We'll do a live coverage at that time, so we can, and I'll have a live shot of the chimney. So we'll watch the chimney on Wednesday, and maybe we'll do some live coverage of some of the other votes. According to this article I was looking at in USA Today, it also says that the next day it's supposed to, if no one is chosen in the first vote, which would be around 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time, then more smoke is expected at 4:30 a.m. Eastern time, 6 a.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, and 1 p.m. Eastern time. So, roughly speaking, that's about 5 votes in the first 24 hours once the voting starts. So maybe by then it'll be known. Kurojek says, Chimney Watchers Unite. So I am planning on doing some live coverage. Maybe we'll be on, we'll see. We might be on I might leave the video up if there's nothing else going on. Might not take that many votes. We'll talk about that as well. Let's see here. Mako says the longest conclave in the past century or so has been 5 days, so we'll have a new pope by the weekend. Okay, so the conclave begins, AP says, in the afternoon, May 7th. The day begins with Mass celebrated in the morning by the Dean of the College of Cardinals, Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re. In the afternoon, the cardinals process into the Sistine Chapel and take their seats. A priest delivers a meditation, and the cardinals take an oath. After it is announced extra omnes for all out, the conclave begins. Unless there are outstanding questions or problems, cardinals take a single vote on the afternoon of May 7th, seeking a 2/3 majority. If they don't find a winner on the first ballot, they retire for the evening and return to the Sistine Chapel the following morning. I think and then they can take up to 2 votes each morning and 2 each afternoon until they have a winner. I think what we'd probably do is on Wednesday, I would probably come live for the first vote and see the smoke coming out for the first vote. And then if the smoke is black, then we wouldn't we'd take a break, and then I think we'd probably come on for the next vote. I think. We'll see, but that's what I'm shooting for. Michael McIsaac says, I wonder what the record is for fewest votes. I have to look that up. How long after the smoke comes out do they announce who the Pope will be? That's also a good question. I also don't know the answer to that. The Pope ends up appearing I'm forgetting the name of it. Is it St. Peter's Basilica, where the Pope appears? And that's I believe, when we find out who it is when the Pope appears and they announce his new papal name. Donna Smith, our viewer, says it's all political. Yeah, people are saying yes, St. Peter's Basilica. Here's some answers to some more of your questions here. And again, we're going to talk about who some of the contenders are. I want to keep showing this too, because I think it's interesting. Where is it here? What am I doing? I need to go to here. That, again, is St. Peter's Square. That's St. Peter's Basilica right there. Here. Unless I'm wrong. And then here is the view of the Sistine Chapel roof, but you can't see the chimney right now. Even though maybe you can. I tried making it brighter. Oh, you know what I can do? I can show you where the I have a video from earlier today of the roof with the chimney. So I can show you that, and then you'll see what it looks like. Hold on a second here. We don't need the sound on that video. Here is the roof of the Sistine Chapel. I'm going to show you right now. This is a Reuters video. Here it is. Is this going to work? Yes. So this is video from earlier today. That's not live video. That's the chimney right there. See that thing right there? Now, it's really interesting. I didn't know this. They install, let me put the video on. I'm playing the video, but it doesn't matter because nothing's really happening. This was earlier today, but what you see in that video from earlier today, as I turn the volume off, is that you see the chimney here. But the chimney, they installed the chimney for this vote. The chimney is not permanent. And the stove where they burn the ballots to produce the smoke is not permanent. They install it. So anyways, that's what you're looking for right there. But if I get rid of this and go to this, see, you can't see the chimney in that shot. So same building, but it's up there somewhere. I mean, the angles are a little different. One's a little more close in, but you get the idea. So again, that's looking at the chimney. How do they make the smoke appear black or white? We'll talk about that. They put, like, I think certain cartridges, chemical cartridges, in with the ballots when they're building them. We're going to have a live shot of the chimney on when they're having the votes. By the way, thanks to Zana Corvin, our member. Thank you. Let's talk some more about this procedure. Also, thanks to DBJ, who says it would be funny if we saw white smoke coming out and it turns out they picked Snoop Dogg as the Pope. Okay, who gets to be part of the conclave? Not all the cardinals who are top officials in the Catholic Church. Not all of them get to vote. Only cardinals under age 80 are eligible to vote. Current regulations notionally limit the number of electors to 120, but popes often exceeded that ceiling, and today there are 135 who are eligible. 135. So if all of them vote, you need 2/3. So that, by my math, you would need 90. You'd need 90 of them. The cardinals who are over 80 but can't vote, but can participate in pre-conclave meetings known as general congregations in which church problems are discussed. Okay. It was in these meetings that then Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio, who became Pope Francis, spoke about the need for the church to go to the existential peripheries to find those who suffer, an off-the-cuff speech that helped his election. We're just covering some of the basics right now. T-Wiki says they need a spotlight on the chimney. That would be kind of neat. They don't have that right now. They just have, it just looks like that. And that's, I've actually got the brightness pumped up. If I reset the brightness on this, you'll actually see that it's pretty dark. Look. So that's with no brightness pumped up. You can't even see the roof. So they do not have a spotlight on it. I think it'd be cool if they did. But anyways, there's with the brightness pumped up. Okay, more details. Are there major differences between this conclave and previous ones? St. John Paul II rewrote the regulations on papal elections in a 1996 document that remains largely enforced today, although it has been amended a couple times. Pope Francis named 108 to 100 of the 135 cardinal electors who are eligible to vote. So it's up to the Pope who gets to be a new cardinal, as I understand it. Pope Francis himself named 108 of the 135 cardinals who are eligible to vote. Something to keep in mind. Pope Benedict amended St. John Paul II's regulations to exclude the possibility that a pope could be elected by a simple majority if voting was stalemated. Benedict decreed that a 2/3 majority is always needed, no matter how long it takes. He did so to prevent cardinals from holding out for the 12 days foreseen by John Paul and then pushing through a candidate with a slim majority. If a conclave lasts that long, the two top vote getters go to a runoff, with a 2/3 majority still required to win. Interesting. And who is eligible to be elected pope? Any baptized Catholic male is eligible to be pope. But since 1378, only cardinals have been selected. Cardinals over age 80 can be elected pope even if they can't be in the room to cast a ballot. So in theory, somebody could be elected who's not a cardinal. I don't see any kind of serious discussion of that happening or prediction of that happening. Let's see here. Babs is talking about the chemical that produces the white smoke. I think we'll talk about that soon. Do we know who the favorites are? We're going to talk about that shortly in our live preview. Thank you for being here for our preview. Thanks also to Donna Smith for the gift memberships. That's really nice of you, Donna. Thank you. Our viewer Trillion says, can be yes, will be not a chance. You mean can be a non-cardinal. By the way, I should quickly give you, to clarify here, what is a cardinal? Wikipedia, a cardinal is a senior member of the clergy of the Catholic Church. They serve as advisors to the Pope, who is the Bishop of Rome. Cardinals are chosen and formally created by the Pope, and they typically hold the title for life. Collectively, they constitute the College of Cardinals. Their most solemn responsibility is to elect a new pope in a conclave, almost always from amongst themselves, with a few historical exceptions. They are drawn from a variety of backgrounds, being appointed as cardinals in addition to their existing roles within the church. Most cardinals are bishops and archbishops leading dioceses and archdioceses around the world, often the most prominent diocese or archdiocese in their country. As of April, there are 252 serving cardinals, of whom 135 are eligible to vote in this upcoming conclave. And again, it's up to the Pope to choose the new cardinals, and Pope Francis chose 108 of the 135 cardinal electors who are eligible to vote. You know what I wonder? So, when Pope Francis chooses a cardinal, somebody to be a cardinal, does he talk to them about like, hey, you know, when I'm not around anymore, I'd kind of like you to vote for this type of person? Or does Pope Francis talk to the person like, if I made you a cardinal, what kind of person would you vote for? Is that discussed? And even if the person who becomes a cardinal tells the existing pope, the living pope, one thing, they could just do something different if they wanted to in the conclave. I don't know how that works. D. Vin thinks they will never vote for an American pope. We'll talk about that a bit. Jeff says Francis appointed about 80% of the current cardinals, so that should tell you something. I think it's actually, it's 80% of the voting cardinals. Travis says it's also convoluted. Cax says, I think they will go for an Italian pope. I have a couple articles talking about that as well. We'll talk about that. Marcia says, watch the movie Two Popes. I do want to watch the movie Two Popes. I haven't gotten a chance yet. I'm finishing up watching Conclave. As I said before, there's a movie called Conclave right now, which many of you have seen. I've been watching it on Amazon Prime Video. It's a neat thing to watch. It's a fictionalized movie about a conclave to elect a new pope. But it's neat. I mean, it gives you a sense of the kind of thing that's gonna be taking place. So, I would suggest checking if you're looking for a way to kind of get an idea of what goes on. I think that's a nice watch. And then The Two Popes is a biographical film about. I need to watch this. Wikipedia says it follows Pope Benedict XVI as he attempts to convince the future Pope Francis to reconsider his decision to resign as an archbishop, as he confides his own intentions to abdicate the papacy. Anyways, it's about the previous pope before he was pope and the pope before that. Peacock says I couldn't get into it. The Two Popes or Conclave. I actually think Conclave. This is a little aside here. Conclave, I actually think could have been a mini-series, but my guess is if I don't know who originally produced Conclave, but my guess is if like a streaming service knew that there was going to be a Conclave coming up, maybe they would have made it into a mini-series. I don't know. I mean, given that various mini-series I've seen don't seem to have that much going on, it certainly seems like you could have had a whole mini-series about a conclave. Maybe there'll be a mini-series about this conclave. I don't know. Just a thought. So in a moment, we'll talk about who the predictions are. Bestie by the Sea says, thought Conclave was fantastic and says I would watch it again. Joshua Type Beat says, white smoke, please. Well, we have to wait till Wednesday for that. Be Righteous says, no women. We'll talk about that as well. So again, any baptized Catholic male can be Pope, but since 1378, only cardinals have been selected. Why aren't women part of the process? AP says, Francis and popes before him have upheld the ban on ordaining women as priests, which precludes them from being pope. Under Catholic doctrine, the priesthood is reserved for men because Christ chose only men as his 12 apostles. The teaching is considered divinely inspired and infallible. So at this point, no now this says women cannot be ordained as priests. This says any baptized Catholic male, which is two different things. So maybe somebody can fill me in on this. This says any baptized Catholic male is eligible to be pope. This says women can't be priests, which precludes them from being pope. I don't know all the doctrine. I am not an expert on the Catholic Church. Anyways, though, the larger point here is that women are not eligible. They're not part of the process. They're not eligible to be pope. And none of them are cardinals either. I am seeing that. I don't know if there's a debate about that. Do you have to be a priest? You don't. Well, anyways, I'm not. Let's not get. There are interesting questions about. Can a woman be a priest? Can a woman be a cardinal and all that stuff? I don't want to get into that now because I don't know it, and you'll be sitting here watching me research these questions. But right now, all male cardinals, and they're going to be the ones voting on this. Yeah, Princess Kidda says, into the weeds we go. We're not going into the weeds there. One of our viewers, Nation Rising, brings up the idea possibly of a black pope. We'll talk about that as well. Let's just go over the rest of this introduction here to what happens. So the voting process is a secret. Pope Benedict tightened the oath of secrecy in the conclave, making clear that anyone who reveals what went on inside faces automatic excommunication from the church. That's even afterwards. You're not allowed to talk about what happened and during the conclave. In John Paul's rules, excommunication was always a possibility, but Benedict revised the oath so that liturgical assistants and secretaries take to make it explicit, saying they must observe absolute and perpetual secrecy and explicitly refrain from using any audio or video recording devices. You are automatically excommunicated from the church if you break that oath, if you publicize anything that went on there. Excommunication, I believe, is when you're kicked out of the community of the church, as I understand it. But maybe that's simplifying it too much. Ruth says that's right. So, no. Gabe says, can they say what went on during the conclave after the conclave? No. It's perpetual. You cannot even talk about what happened after. Forever. Or you're out of the church. Dennis Peale says a person elected pope who is not a cardinal or any sort of priest must be created a bishop on election, therefore excluding any women. Is that what it is? That's what Dennis says. Anyways. And then the last thing for this little preview article here, then we'll take some more comments. We'll talk about the people who are the leading contenders. How does the conclave announce that they've selected a new pope? After the ballots are... Oh, sorry. So I know that, did they talk about the ballots being pierced here? Anyways, as the ballots are counted, I believe they are pierced. After the ballots are pierced, they are burned in a cylindrical stove at the end of the voting session. By the way, the stove in the chimney, they're not permanent. They just got installed in the Sistine Chapel. Black smoke that arises from the burning of the ballots from the Sistine Chapel chimney means no decision. White smoke means cardinals have chosen a pope and that he is accepted. Chemical cartridges are added to ensure there is no confusion over the color. To produce black smoke, a cartridge containing potassium perchlorate, anthracene, the component of coal tar, and sulfur is burned with the ballots. For white smoke, a cartridge of potassium chlorate, lactose, and chloroform resin is burned with the ballots. Bells are also rung, we'll have to be listening for that, to signal the election of a pope for further clarity. The new pope is introduced from the loggia overlooking St. Peter's Square with the words, Habemus Papam, we have a pope, and his chosen papal name, the new pope that emerges and gives his first blessing. I'm hoping to be on the air for all of this and cover it live. I've never covered that live. That would be something. Trusted servant thinks his name will be Peter. So that's the basics of how the voting happens. Phil thinks the Pope in the future will never be anyone other than a cardinal. Chris V says could take a long time. M. Hermes says it may take a couple days for the Pope to be selected. Waltham says Pope Watch 2025. Just Ducky says, I love history, so I'm interested more from that side than a religious side. It's also this very interesting situation where you have the Pope. Now, I'm not an expert on the Catholic doctrine, but I mean this very important religious figure, this certainly the most important human religious figure in the Catholic Church, who is seen as this religious icon. But who gets to be the Pope is just who they vote for. It's just who they vote for. That's who the new Pope is. So it comes down to the votes. Leslie Ladyhawk thinks it's political. All right, should we talk about who the favorites are and some of them? Let's do that. Primo Victoria says it's a secret. Interesting. Now, Betsy by the Sea says, please don't think this film represents what happens. It's a murder mystery film. Only the voting system gives an idea in reality. Yeah, so, I mean, when I said that people might want to check out Conclave for a basic idea of what happens, it's a fictionalized film, and I'm not saying that's exactly what happens. But at least it gives you an idea of oh, these cardinals all meet in the Sistine Chapel and they're sequestered and they have multiple votes and they have to, people change their votes because initially nobody has the 2/3 needed, So it gives you a sense of that process, which I think is kind of neat. I have an article or two about the movie, which we'll talk about during this stream. I'm going to do a quick check. I'm just going to make sure there's no other huge breaking news going on while we talk about this. Thank you again for joining our preview of the conclave coming up. On Wednesday to choose a new pope. By the way, I'm looking up the list of papal conclaves. This doesn't happen very often. I mean, check this out. So this is from Wikipedia, the list of papal conclaves. The last one was 2013. 12 years ago. Before that, 2005. Before that, October 1978. So this is the third one in 47... Wait, am I getting this right? In 47 years. There was one 12 years ago, 20 years ago, and 47 years ago. So this doesn't happen very often. Now, something could happen to the Pope, and then something could happen again, but you get the idea. Maybe this next Pope chosen ends up being Pope for decades. Jay Hitchcock says this will be the 6th Pope in my lifetime. Stug says, do you think we will get an Asian or an African-American Pope? We will be talking about that. We're about to talk about the different contenders. Although, it can be a surprise who wins as well. A number of our viewers really like the movie called Two Popes about Francis and Benedict. Jay Spike said he liked it. Okay. Hold on a second here. Thanks, by the way, to our moderators here. We have Beth Mythical. We have Janet B. We have Roberts May Queen over there on YouTube moderating. I really appreciate it. We have also moderating. Hold on a second here. Bastion Girl, Hearsay, Matthew Kohai 3, and Surly Dev on Twitch. Speaking of Twitch, thanks to Pathless Cross for subscribing. Appreciate that. Also, thanks to our Facebook moderators. We have Rita Evans Lang is moderating. Rita Evans Lang is one of our subscribers. Thanks so much for subscribing, Rita Evans Lang. Our moderators include Christina Neal, Paul Anderson, Kay Lowry Body, thank you. Thanks Jennifer Ellers for subscribing as well. And Kay. Also, thanks to Linda Bell, Larry, Misha on X. Thanks also Scoosebird for being a member over there on YouTube. So, let's talk about, we've talked about the basics of the voting. Again, the voting starts on Wednesday. Going to be covering it live. Who could it be? Our viewer Hired Gun says, could be an Asian or an African Pope. No way they're going to pick any kind of American Pope. That's what Hired Gun thinks. Thanks to Arion7, our member as well. So let's look at this. Now, I want to first show you Polymarket. Polymarket is a betting site. So they are not affiliated with this channel. I just like to be able to give you a sense of how a betting market, what one prominent betting market, what people are betting on. So this is the site called Polymarket, and they have a betting market. Who will be the next pope? And what you can see here, if I can do this, there. So these are now the odds on Polymarket are determined by how much money is being bet on each person. That's what determines the odds. Pietro Parolin is currently the leading contender at 29%. Luis Antonio Tegel, I think he's from the Philippines, is at 18%. We're going to talk about some of these people. Matteo Zuppi is at 11%. Peter Turkson at 8%. You can see Robert Sarah would be a black pope. He is at 3% right now. Let's talk about some of these people. $135 Cardinals vote. You need 2/3 to win. Let's talk about some of these people. Oh, I have a couple articles that talk about the contenders. Okay, let's talk about... This is a Washington Post article. Who will be the next pope? Francis's death leaves no clear frontrunner. This is going to be one of the most unpredictable conclaves in the history of the Catholic faith, says Washington Post. Only members of the College of Cardinals who are under 80 may vote. Theoretically, they may pick any baptized man, although the next pope will surely come from among the princes of the church, its cardinals. Some church watchers have argued that Francis stacked the decks for a successor. He appointed 80% of the 135 cardinals who will be under 80 and voted. But Vatican insiders say it is wrong to conclude that the cardinals picked by Francis will look for a carbon copy of him. Some of the cardinals picked by Pope Francis have far different views than he did on issues ranging from the role of women in the faith to LGBTQ plus outreach. Appointing cardinals is also no guarantee of minting a similar pope. Electors selected by the more conservative Pope Benedict XVI produced Francis, seen as a less conservative pope. Although anything could happen, insiders believe it may be hard for a staunch liberal or conservative to win the 2/3 majority needed, given the large number of electors this time around. That's a very interesting piece of analysis there, that if you're too conservative religiously, in a religious sense, or too liberal, you may not be able to get the 2/3. Under Francis, the College of Cardinals became historically diverse, both geographically and racially. Many of his picks for cardinals came from outside dominant metropolitan areas, from cities such as Equilobia, Nigeria, or Santiago del Estero, Argentina. This is very interesting. This will be the first papal election since 1978 in which European cardinals will not make up a majority of the conclave. A historian who the Washington Post talked to warned that guessing the outcome this time is a losing game. Another expert they talked to said, there is the saying that who enters the conclave as a pope comes out as a cardinal. The favorite never wins. That says there are names of papabili, or potential next pope, circulating. Here are a few. Now, going back to the Polymarket, Let's talk about the top couple first of all. Pietro Parolin and Louis Antonio. Is it Tegel? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So let's talk about them two first of all. By the way, thanks Donna Smith for the gift membership. Let's see here. CAC says it is an interesting process. Bird Nerd says betting on the new pope. A bunch of people are doing this. I have an article or two about that. Raised on the Radio thinks Cardinal Silar would make an outstanding pope. So let's talk about Pietro. One of our viewers, NE, says my money is on Louis Antonio Tegel. Let's talk about the first couple here. Pietro Parolin. So in this article, Pietro Parolin, as the Vatican Secretary of State, Parolin 70 has been the Pope's top diplomatic envoy since 2013 and is among the highest-ranking cardinals in seniority. He has spent years in the Holy See's diplomatic service. Vatican experts describe Parolin as a cautious, prudent, and moderate leader who is well known across the College of Cardinals. You know, the cardinals don't all know each other. Some of them are getting to know each other. A lot of them, I assume, are getting to know each other, you know, right around now, since showing up in Vatican City after the death of Francis. He was proclaimed a cardinal in 2014 by Francis. He was born in northern Italy, Parolin. He was born in northern Italy. There's also now he is the person who is the favorite on Polymarket right now with 29%. Let me show you, there's something else I have about Parolin as well. Right here. There's some pictures of Parolin. Papal contender Parolin is a soft-spoken, long-time Vatican diplomat. That is the current favorite on Polymarket. That's him. Sinan says, cautious, prudent, and moderate. I like him already. So Reuters has a little an article about him. They say, if the Catholic cardinals entering the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis are looking for a steady administrator to run the church and bring some calm after 3 consecutive papacies that at times were tempestuous, they may look no further than Pietro Parolin. On nearly every media shortlist of papal contenders, Parolin has been the Vatican's, he's on nearly every media shortlist of papal contenders. He has been the Secretary of State of the Vatican for the last 12 years, effectively the number 2 position in the church. He is the Vatican's top diplomat. He is from Italy. He is perhaps the candidate best known to the 135, I believe, cardinal electors who will vote in the Sistine Chapel starting on Wednesday in their secret conclave. Cardinals who have visited Rome from around the world on church business have met him, and he has visited most of their countries. Very interesting. So, you know, not all the cardinals know each other, but this article points out that they pretty much all know him, it seems to say. Many of them know him, at least. Let's see here. Okay. Under Francis, this is very interesting. Under Francis, the number of occasions on which all the world's cardinals could meet all together in Rome was limited. We have to get to know each other has been a common refrain to reporters from otherwise tight-lipped cardinals entering and leaving pre-conclave meetings known as general congregations. A bunch of them don't even know each other. You might be voting as a cardinal on the new pope, and until a few weeks ago, you'd never met these people you're voting on in person. Paroline is seen as a quiet diplomat who's pragmatic more than conservative or progressive. He occasionally had to quietly put out fires caused by the late pope's remarks. Okay. As an example, when Francis said Ukraine should have the courage of the white flag to end the war there, the comment drew widespread criticism from allies of Ukraine, but was hailed by Russia. Paroline then quietly told diplomats the Pope meant negotiations, not surrender. Now, some conservative-leaning cardinals in the U.S. and Asia have expressed disagreement with Paroline because he is the main architect of a secret 2018 Vatican agreement with China. They call the deal, which gives Chinese authorities some say in who will serve as Catholic bishops, a sellout to the Communist Party. Supporters say it is better than no dialogue at all between the Church and China, and that even Pope Benedict, known as more conservative than Francis, favored it. Another criticism is that under Paroline's watch, the Secretariat of State lost some $140 million in a botched investment in a London property. Wow. That deal led to a Vatican corruption trial in which Cardinal Angelo Bessiu, who was one of Paroline's top deputies, was convicted of embezzlement and fraud. Paroline's personality is definitely not as charismatic as that of Francis, but some cardinals may see that as a plus. One person who knows him well said, Paroline is like Clark Kent without the Superman part, mild-mannered, industrious, respected, but not flashy. So, it's interesting. There's all these things that could come up. In that article, it just talks about something about when these cardinals are choosing a pope. What are their views on various issues? Do they know them or not? Are they a big personality, a more quiet personality? Are they more conservative or liberal or moderate? Do they have any incidents from their past that the people or things from their record that people voting on aren't cool with? So, just a small sense for one person of some of the kind of things that might come up. And now he is on Polymarket, he is the current favorite. Paroline, 29%. Stefano says, Zuppi is my archbishop/cardinal of my city, ultra-progressive, too progressive, more political than religious, too much. I don't like it. Darthurak says, guys, Francis got us all talking about faith. Nicole, our viewer, Nicole LWB said Catholicism and Christianity in general is illegal in China, and so this is technically a good agreement and a good step forward. Nan B says Tegel is my pick. We'll talk about Tegel next. Sleepy Dormouse thinks that Paroline doesn't have the pastoral experience. You mean the experience of directly interacting with a congregation, like overseeing a congregation and directly interacting with worshipers? Is that what you're talking about? Miriam Lorenza says Cardinal Sarah is my favorite. And then one of our viewers mentioned they liked Cardinal Ambongo Besungu. Milo thinks Paroline is a politician. All right, so we talked about Paroline. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but just to give you a sense of somebody different, let's talk about the number 2 currently over on Polymarket betting site, Louis Antonio Tegel. I have some information on him too. Tegel. If I'm pronouncing the name right, I'm sorry if I'm not. Here is some information on him. The Washington Post says, Tagle, 67, is the pro-prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization for the Philippines, an overwhelmingly Catholic nation. He is considered closely aligned with Francis and was at one point considered his rising star. He has criticized the harsh and severe rhetoric Catholic clerics use to describe members of the LGBTQ+ community and divorced people and unwed mothers. Tagle was born in the Philippines, Manila. His mother is of Chinese heritage and his father is Tagalog. And a little more here on Tagle. I have a preview of him as well from Reuters. Right here. Look, here is something on Tagle. I have a video about Tagle too I can show you. Here is Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines. Here's a picture of him. Then we'll watch a video about him. Filipino Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle is sometimes called the Asian Francis, says Reuters, because of his infectious smile, easy laugh, and spontaneity with words. Like Pope Francis, he hails from a country, the Philippines, far from the Catholic Church's traditional power base of Europe, and came to Rome with an outsider's view. Remember, Francis was from Argentina. Some who have put Tagle on unofficial shortlists for the next pope say he would be a shoo-in to succeed Francis if cardinal electors who enter the secret conclave on Wednesday are looking for as close a similarity as possible to Francis in order to assertively continue Francis's progressive streak. If Tagle were elected, it would also likely signal to the world's 1.4 billion Catholics that the cardinals want to go forward with Francis's vision of generally opening up the church to the modern world by not choosing a man who might roll back some of Pope Francis's reforms. It would also mean his fellow cardinals had shrugged off question marks over his management abilities. One former student of his said he's really like Pope Francis in terms of his love for the poor, his approachability, and so on. He is the former Archbishop of Manila. He would be the first pope from what now is considered Asia, although in the early church, some popes hailed from what is now called the Middle East, technically part of Asia. But he would be the first modern pope from Asia. He has headed the Vatican's Dicastery for Evangelization, the church's missionary arm, for the past 5 years. He gained pastoral experience as Archbishop of Manila, running dioceses in Asia's largest Catholic country. Okay. This is interesting. Tagle's move to Rome brought criticism from then Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who oversaw a bloody war on drugs that killed thousands of Filipinos during his administration. Duterte said that Tagle had been removed from Manila for meddling in national politics. The Philippine Catholic Bishops' Conference denied those accusations forcefully. Many cardinals know Tagle personally, and many see him an attraction in having many may see an attraction in having a pope from Asia, viewed by church leaders as an important region of growth for the faith. That's interesting. Tagle speaks Italian, English, and Spanish as well as his native Tagalog. He has 5 years of experience now with the Vatican's arcane bureaucracy, although some cardinals may think that even that is not enough to run the global church. One possible weakness in his candidacy is that he was involved in a management scandal 3 years ago. In 2022, Pope Francis removed Tagle from a second job as titular head of a Vatican-based confederation of 162 Catholic relief, development, and social services organizations working in more than 200 countries. Francis fired the entire leadership of the group following allegations of bullying by top management. Tagle's role in that organization was mostly symbolic and ceremonial. Tagle enjoys a global reputation as a theologian, which could help him gain votes from moderate cardinals concerned by some of Francis's off-the-cuff utterances, which led to what some called confusion about church teachings. Also, one person who knows him says Tagle has an ability to connect with people in a simple style of living. So again, he is seen, just to reiterate what this article said, it said that he is seen as someone who would continue Francis's progressive streak. Whereas the previous person we talked about, Cardinal Parolin, is seen as more of a moderate, and he's from Italy. Tagle is seen as more progressive, and he's from the Philippines. Those are the top two candidates. And let me take some comments from you. Those are the top two candidates according to the betting on Polymarket. Doesn't mean they're the top two among. For all I know, if you talk to all the Cardinals now in private, you would not think they're the top two. But the betting market, Polymarket, that's where the most money has been coming in on, those two. And in a second, I'm going to show you a video about Tagle. But I want to take a couple comments first. So at least gives you a little bit of an idea of a couple of the people who you might see as Pope. And also, it gives you an idea of some of the different things that the Cardinals will be considering as they vote. Again, how is this person on doctrine? Are they more progressive? Are they more conservative? Are they? How are they? Are there any things they did in their past that I'm concerned about? How would they be as a manager of the church? Where are they from? That might make a difference to people, right? How do they interact with? What would regular Catholics think of them? How do they interact with the press? I mean, there's all these different considerations to take into account. Boo M. Slayer says Robert Sara. Maybe we'll talk about him next. By the way, a quick thanks to Little Luxia, who says, my dad's side knows Cardinal Tagle well. I've met him before. He's really kind. They say he's not a leftist. He gets misinterpreted a lot, and he's not planning or even interested in becoming Pope. That's what Little Luxia says. Thanks, Little Luxia. That's really interesting. And thanks for your support. Let me take some more comments here. We're going to show you a video about Tagle in a second. Our viewer, Jacqueline, says, seems like a good candidate, but I don't know if Jacqueline is talking about Jacqueline. I don't know if Jacqueline's talking about Tagle. Jacqueline might have been talking about Parolin. Bogan says, do any of the Cardinals have a Polymarket account? Nan B says, Tagle, you too young, but not in my mind. Tagle is 67. One of the articles I read about, I was reading an article on the air about a week ago, and it talked about how, I forget where it was from, but it said that some cardinals might not want a pope who is too young, because if you elect a younger pope, that person's more likely to be pope for a longer time. So there might be cardinals who don't want to commit to one person for that long a time, which was an interesting thought. But look, age is another consideration. Maybe somebody wants a younger cardinal. That's another consideration. about that the Cardinals voting could take into effect. You know, I don't know if this happens at all. In the movie Conclave, they discussed the idea that maybe the new Pope would promise people positions if they vote for them. Now, I don't know if that happens explicitly, but I mean, maybe if you're close to one of these candidates, you think, might it occur to you, hey, if this person's Pope, that would help me, have a bigger position in the church. Now, in theory, you might say, well, that's selfish, but maybe you think you'd really help the church. Maybe you think you'd be really good for the church in that position. I don't know. So anyways, I'm just throwing out things these people might think about. I mean, ultimately, it's up to each cardinal to decide they have to decide what's important to them. It's just interesting that this is how the Pope is chosen, is these cardinals just each decide for themselves who to vote for. Betty Lou says, sounds like it gets political. Evan Gothi thinks it's common for people to be elected to not actually want to be Pope. This happened with Benedict, I believe. He was a compromise candidate. I have to admit, I'm not very familiar with Benedict's election, but I am aware that he was seen as a surprise when he was elected. Maybe we can talk more about that. Hey, by the way, thanks so much to Macro Geek. Sparky Pilot says, as a non-Catholic, I sometimes get confused about all the various things, but I eventually sort most of it out. Please thank Macro Geek if you got a gift membership, or if somebody else gave you a gift membership or gift subscription, please thank them. Let me read some more comments here. McKelly Doty says it will be interesting to see how much the current very divisive political climate will influence the vote. Cormac Crisp says Cardinals Sarah and Turkson are African. Cormac Crisp thinks Paroline is progressive. The previous an article we read described him as more moderate, but maybe it's just relative to what you think progressive and moderate are. Michael Woods thinks the whole thing is irrelevant. There's 1.4 billion Catholics in the world, by the way. Hey, thanks, Donna Smith, for the gift membership. I appreciate that. Chicken Nugget says, let's look at some underdogs. We are going to do that. By the way, let me say a quick thanks also to Kristen Gates. I really appreciate your support. Kristen Gates, thank you. And also Ma Florida for subscribing on Twitch, and Massachusetts guy for subscribing on Twitch. All right, we actually have a video about Cardinal Tagle, who is seen as one of the leading contenders to be chosen as the next Pope. We have a video for you. Let's watch a video about Cardinal Tagle. I'm excited. I have not seen this yet. This is from Reuters, from the article I was just looking at. Let's check out this video about Cardinal Tagle. All right, I'm putting it on the screen right now. Here it is. I think it might be, I might have to adjust the volume here. Hopefully I get the volume right.
Father Robert Reyes wouldn't have guessed he was talking to a possible future pope when he first met Luis Antonio Tagle back in 1973 at their...
Let me just, I have to apologize because I was pronouncing his name incorrectly. It is Tagle. As I said, I do not pretend to be an expert on this field, so it's Tagle. How is the volume? Do you need more volume on this? Maybe I'll turn it up a little bit for you.
Father Robert Reyes wouldn't have guessed he was talking to a possible future pope when he first met Luis Antonio Tagle back in 1970 at their seminary school in the Philippines. Today, Tagle is a cardinal and seen as a likely contender to succeed Pope Francis at this week's conclave. When Reyes met him decades ago, the Philippines was under martial law and their seminary was a place of quiet resistance.
Also, I know the audio is only on one side. This is a Reuters video. Sometimes these videos only have the audio on one side. There's nothing I can do about it. I apologize. That's just the way the video is. So I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way it is.
Reyes met him decades ago. The Philippines was under martial law and their seminary was a place of quiet resistance. And he says he could tell Tagle, who goes by the nickname Cheeto, was brilliant.
He was this very skinny boy from Imus, Cavite, and very quiet, but then if you start talking to him, he's a conversationalist. You can talk, and he's very intelligent, very friendly. I will find it a self-fulfilling prophecy because, as I said, we were teenagers and they were already teasing him, Cardinal Tagle. And some were even teasing him when they got sick and tired of just saying Cardinal, Cardinal, Cardinal. Why not Pope Cheeto? I will look at God and tell God, you really know how to surprise us.
Some call the Philippines Asia's Catholic lung, as 80% of its 115 million people are Catholic, and 67-year-old Tagle has been called the Asian Francis for a similar focus on social justice. He was an Archbishop of Manila before Francis named him to lead the Vatican's missionary arm.
Nobody doubted that he will go very far because even in the seminary, in Ateneo, and later on in the School of Theology, he was always up there, up in the clouds, too far away from us all. Yet, in spite of his excellence in all of our studies, he didn't stay there. He always landed where we are and helped us along to survive our academic requirements.
But Tagle has also been ensnared in scandal. Starting in 2015, he was top leader for Caritas Internationalis, a global confederation of Catholic charity groups. In 2022, Francis fired him and the entire leadership following reports of bullying by management. Tagle's role was mostly ceremonial. However, Tagle told a Caritas meeting that the changes were a moment for facing our failures. It's unclear how that may affect his chances when the conclave begins Wednesday. Voting goes in rounds until one candidate gets 2/3 support, signaled by white smoke. If elected, Tagle would become the first Asian pope in modern history. Father Robert Reyes.
Interesting. So that's about Tagle. Roger says interesting. I agree. He would be the first Asian pope in modern history from the Philippines. Tagle. It's interesting. Also, they said about most people in the Philippines are Catholic. It's a large number of Catholics there. David Peltier thinks he is the best candidate. Let me just show you a live shot of St. Peter's Square right there. So remember, Little Luxia says, has the media ever predicted the Pope correctly? I don't know, but frequently, as one of the articles said, there's this famous saying, if you go into conclave as a pope and come out a cardinal. The process is known for frequently not picking one of the supposed favorites. Just a reminder, as we talked about earlier, the conclave starts on Wednesday, and it's expected there will be one vote on Wednesday. And according to an article I had read, it said that the smoke would be expected around 7 to 8 p.m. local time on Wednesday, which would be about 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. And that, nighttime their time. So I'd like to be on the air for that. And at that point, we'll see smoke come out, either black if no pope is chosen or white if a pope is chosen. And then if that first vote does not result in a pope, then supposedly there will be 4 votes the next day. And this article in USA Today said those 4 votes were expected at local time, 10:30 a.m., noon, 5:30 p.m., and after 7 p.m., which would mean that on the east coast of the U.S., the smoke would come out at 4:30 a.m., 6 a.m., 11:30 a.m., and after 1 p.m. How many votes were there in the 2013 conclave? Let's see. The fifth ballot. So in 2013, there were 5 ballots. So I believe it was the evening of the first full day of voting. Because there's 1 vote on the first day and 4 votes on the second day. Oh, all that's random said 2 are seriously Hill. One of the articles said 135. Are 2 of them not voting? I'll have to look into that. Nicole Marie said there were 5 ballots in 2013. So that would be the end of like if there were 5 ballots this time, that would be the end of Thursday Italy time. So like middle of the day, Thursday US time, Eastern time. I don't know how many votes are going to be. Let me see something here. Hold on a second here. You know what's weird? Some of the articles said 135, but the Vatican says 133. The Vatican official site says there are 133 electors involved who are all there. They're all there. The Vatican says all 133 cardinal electors who are present in Rome are present in Rome ahead of the conclave. Some of the articles said 135. David Peltier said 2 had health issues. I hadn't heard that. Hold on. I might have something about this. Let's see here. Hold on. Yeah, Reuters says there's 133. Yes, the Vatican said that 2 cardinals, one from Spain and one from Kenya, will not be joining the conclave for health reasons. Okay, so there are 2 eligible to vote who will not be there. Okay, so instead of 135, it's 133. Sorry, I had that wrong. So you would need, for 2/3, you would need 132, you'd need 88. So what do you need, 89? Is that 2/3? Am I getting that right? Do you need 89 votes out of the 133? Yes, you need 89 votes. Okay. Yes, as Calico Heart says, cardinals over 80 are not allowed to vote. We're going to talk about a couple of the other candidates, cardinals who are seen as interesting candidates for this, to be possibly chosen for various reasons. JJ Jules says 88.60, so it would be 89. But what I do want to mention is I should briefly talk about the chimney. By the way, our viewer Bastion Girl thinks if Paroline is elected Pope, it fulfills the prophecy of Saint Malachi, made hundreds of years ago when he accurately predicted every pope in history, claims Bastion Girl. known as Peter the Roman, he would be the last pope according to the prophecy. That's what our viewer Bastion Girl says. One of our moderators, Bastion Girl. Thanks for moderating. Hang on a moment here. Give me 1 second. Oh, by the way, I just saw something from, really quick, I'll give you an update on something real quick. Then we'll continue with our preview. Yes. ABC 7 Eyewitness News reports that an intruder drove through the front gate of Jennifer Aniston's Bel Air residence while she was at home, according to Los Angeles police. Thanks to AZ Intel, who I follow, for mentioning that story. But ABC News reports, LA reports, an intruder drove through the front gate of Jennifer Aniston's Bel Air home. She was home when it happened. A man in his 70s crashed through her front gate. LAPD says it may have been an accident. I don't know if it was an accident or not. So I'm just letting you know about that. It says intruder. I don't really like that headline. It says intruder. So we don't know if intruder implies intentional, but we don't know if it was intentional. Okay. Anyways, I wanted to just mention that because I just saw it. All right. And Akeem Edler mentioned that, hold on a second here, hold on. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second here. Akeem Idler mentioned that the Vatican has an article about the history of the conclave, which I'll post a link to. I'm going to post a link to a Vatican article with a history of the conclave. I just posted a link to it. You can read the whole thing if you want. They say that the next conclave starting on Wednesday to elect the 267th Pope will be the 76th in the form we know today, which was established in 1274. It will be the 26th in the Sistine Chapel under the gaze of Michelangelo's Last Judgment. Thanks to Akeem for sending that in. Okay. And so I'm trying to take some more of your comments as well. Dr. Abdullah says there was a conclave that lasted 3 years. I have an article. Yeah, I actually have an article that talks about that. Hold on. Hold on a moment here. How long was the longest conclave? Facts about the secret voting to elect a pope. And that was in the 13th century. It took almost 3 years to elect a pope. It's where the term conclave comes from, because the cardinals who were meeting took so long the town's frustrated citizens locked them in the room. That was the first example of a papal election by compromise after a long struggle between supporters of two main geopolitical medieval factions. Gregory X was elected only after Viterbo residents tore off the roof of the building where the prelates were staying and restricted their meals to bread and water to pressure them to come to a conclusion. There was a restriction declared about that if the conclave stretched beyond 3 days, only bread, water, and wine cardinals would get only one meal a day, and only bread, water, and wine if it went beyond 8. That restriction has been dropped. The shortest conclave ever. Before 1274, there were times when a pope was elected the same day as the death of his predecessor. Pope Francis was elected on the 5th ballot in 2013. Benedict XVI won in 2005 on the 4th ballot. Pope Pius the 12th won on the 3rd ballot in 1939. Okay. Let's talk about, some people had wanted to talk about some of the other candidates. So let's talk about, for example, the possibility of a black pope. That, for example, is Cardinal Robert Sarah of Guinea. Now, if you look on Polymarket, this is a gambling site. You have, I left out Peter Turkson. Sorry, hold on a second here. One moment. If you look at Polymarket, Peter Turkson is 8%. And Robert Sarah is 3%. And Fridolin Ambongo Bisungu is 1%. Currently, the odds on Polymarket for who will be the next pope, just depending on how much money comes in on each person. You can go to Polymarket if you want and look these up yourself. But those are 3 African popes, African cardinals, I'm sorry. So let's talk about this a little bit. Africans, AP says Africans say a black pope would be nice to have, but they're not too hopeful. If the next pope is from sub-Saharan Africa, he would be the first in Catholic Church history. Catholic Africans think it's a long shot, though some are cautiously optimistic that Pope Francis' successor could be a black cardinal from their continent. Who are the Africans considered papabile? The term used, at least 3 African cardinals are among those currently cited as papabile, the term used by Vatican observers to describe possible contenders to lead the Catholic Church. They are Cardinals Robert Sarah of Guinea, who's right there, and then this is Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana, right here, and Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo Bisungu of Congo. Fridolin Ambongo of Congo. Right there. If any of them were selected, they would be the first African pope in more than 1,500 years and the first ever from sub-Saharan Africa. Before the 2005 conclave that elected Pope Benedict XVI, there was much media attention around Francis Arinze, a highly respected cardinal born in Nigeria, raising questions even then about whether the world was ready for a black pope from Africa. a continent where Catholicism is growing. Now, 2 decades later, Catholicism continues to decline in Europe while it grows in the developing world. The number of Catholics is growing faster in Africa than anywhere else. Again, if you might, some of the cardinals voting might think, hey, maybe it's good to have a new cardinal from the developing world because that's where our growth is going to come from. At least 20% of the global Catholic community is in Africa, which is characterized by a highly dynamic spread of the Catholic Church, according to a recent Vatican report. Some say that having a pope from Africa or Asia, remember we talked about Cardinal Tagle from Philippines being a contender. Some say having a pope from Africa or Asia, which is also seeing strong Catholic growth, would send a powerful message of inclusion. But as Francis's papacy showed, inclusive efforts can alienate many others and even breed dissent. The three possible papal candidates from Africa, Sara, Ambongo, and Turkson, are seen as holding orthodox traditional views on some of the hot-button issues that the Catholic Church is grappling with, reflecting wider social conservatism on the continent of 1.3 billion people. Catholic orthodoxy in Africa was at odds with Pope Francis's pastoral vision of mercy and understanding for all marginalized groups, including LGBTQ plus Catholics. So you shouldn't assume that if one of these African popes is elected, that they would be a progressive on everything, because they wouldn't be, as it says here. It mentions that this real-life situation was reflected in the movie Conclave, where one of the four contenders was a socially conservative cardinal from Nigeria. Okay, just as an example of some of the views, some of them have Cardinal Ambongo of Congo last year signed a statement rejecting a Vatican declaration to allow priests to offer spontaneous non-liturgical blessings to same-sex couples seeking God's grace. That statement asserted that same-sex unions were contrary to the will of God. Then Cardinal Sara from Guinea posed a more public challenge to Francis. Sara is a favorite of traditionalists. He is a staunch defender of long-standing doctrinal faith. After Pope Francis reimposed restrictions on celebrating the Latin Mass that Benedict had relaxed, Sara responded with tweets quoting Benedict's original 2007 law to relax the restrictions. Anyways, so he was critical of the restrictions on celebrating the Latin Mass, the old Latin Mass that Francis put into place. Anyways, that's a really interesting aspect of this. So, again, you shouldn't think that, these three candidates who are all black and African cardinals from Africa would be super progressive. Because, as the article says, they are seen as holding orthodox views on some of the hot-button issues that the Catholic Church is grappling with. That's very interesting. In Africa, where Francis was widely loved for his engagement with the continent's crises, many Catholics simply want a pope who will be a faithful leader for everyone. Very interesting. Maybe it'll be one of those three. Cardinal Turkson from Ghana, Cardinal Sara from Guinea, and Cardinal Ambongo of the Congo. Eric says Italian Pope, please. I have something to talk about with that too. I have an article about that. Macro Geek thinks there'll be a record-setting number of rounds coming up. One of our viewers had asked about like how long could it go. Now, I don't know. I mean, at a certain point, I would assume that the people in the room, once you go a few days, would probably start, I don't think they want to be sitting there for a month or something like that. There was also, I will say this about Conclave if you've seen it. There's some discussion in that where they talk about, well, if we take too long, how does it look to the outside world? So I don't know that they'd really want it to go that long. So that's a good question. I wonder on Polymarket, is there a Polymarket betting option where you can bet on how many votes there will be? I'm sure at some places you can. Like how many rounds of voting. Look at this. Yeah, look, you can. So for example, and again, I'm not affiliated with Polymarket. I'm just giving you an example of what people are betting on. What continent will the next pope be from? Europe is currently the favorite on Polymarket, 67%, Asia 12%, Asia 18%, Africa 12%, North America 3%. Number of days to elect the next pope. Polymarket, 3% day 1, 54% day 2, 27% day 3. Again, these odds are just determined by how much money is coming in on the different choices. Macro Geek thinks the progressive versus conservative differences may take long to work through. Is there a minimum age to become pope? No, I don't believe so. You have to be a baptized Catholic male. But it's pretty certain it'll be a cardinal. Thanks, by the way, so much to Vicky, Dave, and Coco for your support. Thank you so much. Vicky, Healy, Dave, and Coco. So that's interesting. I had an article or two about people betting on the Pope. People might think that's pretty interesting. Play your Cardinals right. Betting on next Pope gains popularity ahead of the conclave. Artist Caverlin says, gross and very sad. Gary Patey said they bet on everything. We're going to talk about that in a second. Hold on a second. A couple of our viewers have mentioned Pizzaballa. One of our viewers, David Rudman, says the two likely Holy Land cardinals, Pizzaballa or Filoni. Michael McIsaac says, I'm literally betting on the Pope as we speak. The first vote will take place Wednesday evening local time. Let's talk about this a little bit. Next week's this article is from a couple days ago, but the conclave is a solemn affair steeped in centuries-old traditions, but far from the Sistine Chapel, where cloistered cardinals will cast votes, AP says. People are placing bets on who will be chosen as the next pope. From cash bets on websites to online games modeled after fantasy football leagues and casual wagers among friends and families, the popularity of guessing and gambling on the future of the papacy is increasing worldwide. Experts and participants say it's even topped the Europa League soccer tournament and Formula One Drivers' Championship, said the manager for Odds Checker. a leading online platform analyzing odds across sports, events, and other betting markets. He said, there's a huge level of interest globally. I don't think we've had a market like this where we've had so many countries interested in seeing betting odds on the Pope. Jeremy Thompson, our reviewer, thinks gambling on the Pope has to be a sin. Around the world, thousands of bets on the next Pope. Mike J says, this is outrageous. Hundreds of thousands of people from some 140 countries have visited OddsChecker to review each cardinal's chances of becoming the next Pope, Eaton said. He noted special eagerness in the United Kingdom, Ireland, and the United States. In the UK, now this article's from a couple days ago. In the UK, almost $40,000 has been wagered with one leading online betting platform as of this week. A far cry from the £1.2 million on the singing contest Eurovision, but still noteworthy as a trend with the conclave days away. On Polymarket, does it say how much money has come in here? Yeah. So according to Polymarket, they say they have $16 million of volume on who will be the next Pope. What continent has $2 million of volume? What day to elect the next Pope? That's not much volume there, 186,000. But Polymarket says $16 million have come in. Let's see here. But if we go back to, where is that article here? Right here. A spokesman for one of the UK's biggest bookmakers said, betting on the next Pope is definitely a niche market in the grand scheme of things, but it generates global interest. It's the busiest of all of our non-sports betting markets, he said. Betting on elections, papal conclaves, and all manner of global events is almost a tradition of its own in the UK, but such betting is not legal in the US. BetMGM, one of the world's top sports betting companies, said it would not have any bets up on the conclave. But Eaton noted that in the unregulated illegal space, one of the biggest sites has $10 million wagered so far in Pope bets. Oh, also it says here, in Italy, betting on the papal election and all religious events is forbidden. Some people in Rome are making friendly, informal wagers, like $20 on the favorite cardinal. Others are turning to an online game called Fanta Papa, or Fantasy Pope, which mimics popular fantasy football and soccer leagues. More than 60,000 people are playing, each choosing 11 cardinals as if for a soccer team, whom they believe have the best shot at becoming the next Pope. They also draft the top contender or captain. As with online wagers, the number one choice for fantasy players has been Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin, closely followed by Filipino Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. Okay. The jackpot for that site is eternal glory, the creator said. Some concerns about betting on a solemn event. Some of our viewers are concerned about this. Players and gamblers can also guess how many tries it will take the Cardinals to be elected, how many votes there will be. We showed you that on Polymarket. Which day of the week he'll be elected, what new name he'll decide on. For example, anti-gambling advocates have raised overall concerns about legal gambling and the growing popularity of wagering in all manner of events. Some have raised religious concerns. Catholic teaching does not go so far as to call games of chance or wagers sinful, but its catechism warns that the passion for gambling risks becoming an enslavement. I'm not going to speak on Catholic doctrine here when it applies to betting. TFB says, shame you can't technically bet from the U.S. I think it might be the case that you can't legally use Polymarket from the U.S., but don't hold me to that. I don't know. That you're responsible for checking that yourself. I don't know. You can do the research on that yourself. But I'm just showing you their site as an example of a site that has a bunch of betting going on who will be the next pope and what continent they'll be from, for example, number of days to be elect the next pope. They might have more up there as well. Jen Madison says, I wonder if the Cardinals check the betting sites and AI, you never know. Are the Cardinals aware of these odds? TFB saw a report people were using VPNs to bet. Which country is doing the most betting? I don't know. Supposedly there's a lot going on in the UK. Entus says betting on the Pope is kind of wild. Hey, thanks, Zivlap. Sivlap thinks the next Pope will probably be from Europe to bring back the Eurocants. There's so many different aspects to this conclave that I find very interesting. We didn't even talk about the idea of Italians, an Italian pope. I mean, here's an article from the Washington Post. Italians once ruled the Catholic Church. Will they lead it again? Chris N. says the clergy tries to keep up with technology. So a reminder, we've been doing this preview of the conclave. These do not happen often. There was one in 1978, there was one in 2013, and there was one in between. When was the one for Benedict? When was the other one? Who knows it in the chat? 1978, 2005. 1970, I mean, there were multiple in 1978, but Pope John Paul II one was October 1978, then 2005, then 2013. These do not happen normally very often. And we have 133 cardinals choosing the next pope, who will almost certainly be one of the cardinals. The first vote will be on Wednesday. Wednesday evening is expected to be the first vote. And I'm planning on covering that live, and we will see smoke come out of the Sistine Chapel chimney. Black smoke for no pope chosen, white smoke for pope chosen. In each of the votes, smoke will come out. And we'll have a live shot of that for you. So I am planning on covering that. So I hope you can join me for that. Thanks, Dennis Kennedy, our member, by the way. So we're covering this. I think it's a really interesting. I am not Catholic, but I think it's a very interesting event, and obviously one with a lot of importance because it's choosing the next leader of the Catholic Church, of which there are around 1.4 billion members. No, as Michael McIsaac says, no live streams from the conclave. People involved have to take a vow of secrecy, saying they will be excommunicated if they talk about what happened there. Ken Richardson says no phones allowed. I don't think any electronic devices are allowed in there. Maybe let's talk about the Italian angle a little bit. That's interesting. Hey, thanks, Timido, for your support. Thank you, Timido, and also NamaxWe1. Thanks for the gift sub, NamaxWe1. And Warlord Wolf, thanks for subscribing on Twitch. Raven Knight says no phones, no electronic devices. Prospering Woman says there were two conclaves in 1978. Pope John I died the year he was installed. Let's talk about the idea of an Italian pope. Italians once ruled the Catholic Church. Will they lead it again? This is from the Washington Post. Ahead of the 2013 conclave to replace Pope Benedict, Cardinal Angelo Scola of Milan was tipped to restore the papal hat to an Italian. Italians got the next best thing in Pope Francis, the Argentine son of Italian immigrants, but many here wondered whether one of their own would ever again sit on the throne of St. Peter. Now some Italians are daring to dream again. The conclave that begins Wednesday remains unpredictable, with the largest and most diverse group of cardinals in church history set to elect the next leader of 1.4 billion Catholics. As the princes of the church prepare to shutter themselves in the Sistine Chapel, Italy has more cardinals talked about as top contenders than any other country. That's very interesting. Italy has more cardinals talked about as top contenders than any other country, boosting the chances of a nation that birthed roughly 80% of the 266 popes, though none since 1978. Italians this time are hopeful but guarded, knowing full well, that a church that is growing fastest in the developing world may see another Italian pope as an ill-advised step backward. On the other hand, Italy has more voting cardinals than any other country, and its contenders, some seen as skillful diplomats, tick boxes that their international peers may see as vital in unstable times when wars are raging in the Middle East and Europe and nationalism is reawakening in the West. Very interesting. Here is this saying again. It is often said that he who enters a conclave as pope leaves a cardinal. But Cardinal Pietro Parolin, currently the betting favorite on Polymarket, the Vatican's powerful Secretary of State, and Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, Francis's emissary to Russia and Ukraine, as well as the Archbishop of Bologna. Is it Bologna or Bologna? I'm embarrassed to say I don't know. Excuse me. Somebody will correct me in the chat on this. Bologna. They rank as among the most talked about contenders. Parolin is viewed as a moderate, while Zuppi is seen as more progressive. A third Italian contender, some of you in the chat have been talking about, Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, has not shied from wading into politics in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Let me read a little more. This is an interesting article here. Let me just read a little more of this. I'll take some comments. An Italian pope makes some practical sense. Italian remains the lingua franca of Vatican City, serving as the language of documents and official meetings. The pope is also the Bishop of Rome officially and traditionally addresses his local flock in their native tongue, Italian. The lack of Italian fluency has been cited as a mark against some rumored contenders like Congo's Cardinal Mbongo. Yet when the overwhelmed Benedict became the first pope in 600 years to retire, Italians were seen as central to the Vatican's problems. Corruption allegations and scandals swirled in the heavily Italian papal staff and Roman Curia, the Vatican's Byzantine bureaucracy. The Italian cardinals were also divided by bitter rivalries. That dynamic is somewhat less prevalent today. Italians dominated the papacy from 1523 to 1978, when Pope John Paul II from Poland began a streak of non-Italians that included Benedict, a German, and Francis I from Latin America. Okay. The Italians will make up the single largest group single largest national group of cardinals voting, with 19 voting members. 19 Italians of the 133 voting. That doesn't mean they form a united bloc, however. Of all the Italian contenders, Cardinal Parolin is the highest profile and the odds-on favorite at William Hill betting agency. We've talked about him before. He's Francis' Secretary of State. He is seen as the number 2 in Vatican City. He was seen as the number 2 in Vatican City. He is viewed as more centrist than Francis. He does not rank among the conservative ideologues who would alarm church liberals the most. As we talked about, he has some baggage. He is seen as the architect of a secretive Vatican deal with Beijing, first struck in 2018. The deal is believed to give the Chinese government the power to select the names of Catholic bishops, which the Vatican can veto, an arrangement that has been widely criticized in the U.S. and elsewhere. Parolin was also associated, though never charged, in a financial corruption case involving a London real estate deal that entangled another Italian cardinal, Angelo Becciu. Perhaps his biggest weakness, however, is his perceived staidness, being kind of dry and not that exciting. Okay, anyways, so that's all these different things we've been talking about. What will it be, a younger pope or an older pope? Will it be an Italian? Will it be somebody from Asia maybe, or a black pope from Africa? Will it be somebody who's more progressive like Francis was, or somebody more conservative than Francis? Wow. I kind of want to do a poll on it, but I don't know if, there's so many different choices. By the way, hold on one second here. Pope Benedict died in the year 2022. Pope Benedict XVI. Somebody had asked about him. He was Pope from 2005 to 2013. People want us to do a poll. How should I do it, though? There's so many people we could ask about in the poll. So I don't know how I should do it. You'd think, because, there's Parolin and Tagle who are seen, over here. And Zuppi is from, is Zuppi from Italy? Yeah, Zuppi's another Italian one, right? Am I right about this? Who is seen as more conservative? Matteo Zuppi. Matteo Zuppi. Archbishop of Bologna. Could do nationality. How about this? We could do, because Parolin, Zuppi, and Pizzaballa are all Italian, okay? Then Tagle is Filipino. Turkson, Sara, and Abongo are all sub-Saharan Africa, Black African. So we could do a poll, which is, do you think it'll be Italian, Tagle, one of a Black African, or a different one? Let's do that. Okay? I'm going to do a poll. We haven't done a poll yet. The next pope will be, so you get 3 choices and then other. The first one is Italian. The next one is Cardinal Tagle. Black African, there's several of those. Cardinals and other. All right, I'm asking this right now. And I'm going to post it now on Twitch, and I'll post it on Facebook too. It'll be our poll for the broadcast. All right, I'm posting it on Twitch now. Maybe it'll be somebody that we haven't even talked about, that nobody's talking about. Okay, Twitch, I have posted the poll over there for you. And I'm posting it now over on Facebook. Italian, Cardinal Tagle, Black African, and other. All right, I'm putting it on Facebook. It's now posted to Facebook, supposedly. All right, let's see. Who are you guys? What do you guys think? Let's see what you guys think. I am pulling up the results over there on YouTube right now. Here is the current vote on YouTube. "44% say Italian. 18% say Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines. 18% say one of the Black African cardinals. And 20% say other. House of Selena thinks it'll be Cardinal Tagle. Air Fried Tofu says Pope Zuppi from Italy. Number of people are saying their specific choices in the chat. Okay, over there on Facebook so far, I see 3/4 say Italian and 1/4 say Cardinal Tagle over on Facebook. And then on Twitch, let me show you the Twitch vote. "41% say Italian. 11% say Cardinal Tagle, 9% say one of the Black African cardinals, and 39% say other." Roger Shoemaker says, "I'm thinking Tagle." Serrero says, "The plaza is beautiful. I have been there." One of the articles said this is one of the most unpredictable conclaves in a while. I mean, you don't know who it is. The smoke comes out, the white smoke comes out, the bells ring, and you don't know who it is, and then they just appear. And then it's like, okay, that's who it is. Which is interesting to me. By the way, thanks to Dennis Kennedy, our member, and also Michael McIsaac, our member. And thanks to JM, our member, and Big Back, our member, as well. Thanks for voting in our poll. We'll see. All right. Is there any other aspect of this? I'm quite interested in seeing what happens. I appreciate you voting in our poll. You know, I don't think this would be a complete preview unless we maybe spent a couple minutes talking about what challenges the next pope will face. I think we should talk about that a little bit because, you know, ultimately the choice of somebody is who's going to lead them into the future. I had a couple things I could show you about that. Let me see here. Oh, by the way, before I do that, this is also interesting too. This is from the Washington Post talking about a tug of war for the soul of the Catholic Church. Just some interesting things they mention. In the pre-conclave sessions in a sprawling Vatican auditorium, the assembly of cardinals is so large that members are wearing name tags. Some have attacked the norm-changing, challenging late pope in terms atypically sharp, while others say his successor should continue his mission. Battle lines are being drawn over the direction of the Catholic Church. Pope Francis sought to drag the church out of the bedroom, de-emphasizing condemnation and embracing a motto of todos, 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 everyone, everyone, everyone. But as they prepare to enter the Sistine Chapel on Wednesday, some cardinals are now pushing for sharper direction from a more hierarchical church that returns to doctrinal discipline. New fault lines have opened, particularly between church traditionalists and reformists. This is interesting. They say the Washington Post is reporting that a number of people familiar with recent Vatican briefings say cardinals in these briefings are outlining the challenges confronting the church. The papacy, they say, needs an evangelizer, somebody who can... When you're an evangelizer, you try to bring people into the church. Am I correct about this? Yeah, you try to make converts. In many ways, the Post says the real action is happening off stage in Vatican hallways or in the cafes and restaurants of Rome, at dinners, lunches, coffees, and cocktails, where men in black and scarlet cassocks huddle in back corners and delicately lobby. Campaigns and intrigues are swirling. The Vatican on Friday was forced to deny a report that one frontrunner, Cardinal Parolin, had required emergency medical treatment after a blood pressure surge. That came after unnamed cardinals suggested to the National Catholic Reporter that the staid Parolin had failed the audition for Pope last Sunday with a dud of a mass. So all this intrigue going on. The daggers are out for progressive contender Cardinal Tagle of the Philippines. Videos that show him allegedly acting unpapally. In one, he grooves briefly with a sacred statue during Mass, have lit up the internet. Interesting. The extent of the Vatican's financial woes, donations are down, and its pension system has a gaping deficit, has come into sharp focus. The church, some cardinals are arguing, desperately needs a money man and manager. Some cardinals are chafing against Francis's radical move to include lay people in the church's decision-making process. So that's a whole other topic that is being discussed. Church progressives are clamoring for faster reform, particularly on a greater role for women than Francis was willing or able to deliver. More traditional churches in Africa, where the faith is growing the fastest, rejected Francis's 2023 authorization of short blessings for same-sex couples and have pushed instead for pastoral outreach to people in polygamist relationships. The U.S. Church, meanwhile, faces a struggle for its soul with MAGA Catholics led by some radically conservative Catholic clerics politicizing the faith. Some observers fear a liberal pope could lead conservatives to break away from the church, while a conservative one could worsen the flight of more progressive churches such as Germany's. In Germany, some 1.1 million Catholics have left the faith in just the past 3 years, many of them citing disgust over sexual abuse and the slow pace of reform. Wow. I mean, it's so interesting, part of what is going to be discussed is how do we, bring more people into the church. But there's all these different, and keep people from leaving the church. But there's all these, it's not a unified church. There's all these different, among the cardinals and among just the ordinary churchgoers, there's all these different views. Eric Lassen, our viewer, says, reforms are not the be-all, end-all. There is much to be said about simple tradition. Tracy thinks the Catholic Church has taken a dive due to the sexual assault stuff. Sexual abuse stuff, I'm sorry. Grammy Sammy thinks they will vote a budget-friendly pope. AP has an article about what challenges await the next pope. They say that Pope Francis left much unfinished business, from the Vatican's disastrous finances to the wars raging on multiple continents, and discontent among traditionalists about his crackdown on the old Latin Mass. The role of women. Francis did more to promote women to leadership positions in the Vatican than any pope before him, and his successor will have to decide whether to continue that legacy, accelerate it, or back down and change course. The issue isn't minor. Catholic women do much of the church's work in schools and hospitals and are usually responsible for passing the faith to the next generation. They have long complained of second-class status in an institution that reserves the priesthood for men. Nuns are leaving in droves. The number of nuns globally has been hemorrhaging at about 10,000 per year for over a decade. In 2012, there were over 700,000. In 2022, there were about 600,000. Also, polarization of progressives and traditionalists. It's another challenge. Also, clergy sexual abuse is a challenge. While many church leaders would like to think clergy sexual abuse scandals are in the past, survivors and their advocates want the new pope to address it as a top priority. Francis and Pope Benedict XVI took steps to end decades of abuse and cover-ups, changing church laws to punish abusers and their clerical superiors who hid their wrongdoing, but a culture of impunity still reigns. The new pope must deal with not only the existing caseload, but continued outrage from rank-and-file Catholics and ongoing revelations in parts of the world where the scandal hasn't yet emerged. Also, LGBTQ+ outreach. Francis sought to assure gay people that God loves them as they are, and that being homosexual is not a crime, and that everyone is welcome in the church. His successor must decide whether to follow that outreach or pull back. There is plenty of support for rolling it back. In 2024, African bishops issued a continent-wide dissent from Francis' decision allowing priests to bless same-sex couples, for example. So, I'm guessing that these issues here in the conclave. I'm guessing that different candidates' views on the role of women, on being progressive versus being a traditionalist, on clergy sexual abuse, how that should be approached, on LGBTQ plus outreach. Different candidates will have different views on these things. That'll be discussed. Wow. So much about this whole thing. Such a deep topic. Let me take a few more comments here. We'll see what happens starting Wednesday. Sean says, instead of 2 weeks of Tel Aviv cam, let's have 2 weeks of rooftop watch. I don't think it'll take 2 weeks. Might take a few days. We'll have to see. I mean, if no other news is coming, I'm happening, I might leave the live cam of the chimney up. Right now, I have a live cam, but it's dark. That's a live cam of the Sistine Chapel chimney, but it's in here somewhere. You can't really see it. That is a live camera, though. They're not having a vote tonight anyway. TFB says, I guess it's more factionalized and political than I thought. Yeah, the voting begins Wednesday. The first vote is expected Wednesday night local time. The smoke is expected to appear roughly around 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern time. Mark Boutel says, one of the largest conclaves may take longer. Fantasy says, require Mass in Latin now. I mean, there's so much. One of our viewers asked about the finances of the church, said, what's wrong with the finances? So, as an example, I might show you another video. New Pope will face Vatican budget crisis and a myriad other problems. Let's see about the budget here. The Vatican is facing a budget shortfall, says Reuters, and growing liabilities for its pension fund. The Vatican's financial crisis was one of Pope Francis's last headaches. 3 days before his last hospitalization, he ordered the creation of a new high-level commission to encourage donations to the Vatican, which is facing a budget shortfall and growing liabilities for its pension fund. Although the Vatican has not published a full budget report since 2022, the last set of accounts approved in mid-2024 included a $94 million shortfall, 2 sources told Reuters. The shortfall in the pension fund was estimated to total some 631 million euros by the Vatican's finance czar in 2022. One reverend who has written about the Vatican's finances said the budget woes could have a tremendous impact on who the cardinals entering the conclave choose as the new pope. They're going to have to elect somebody who is a fundraiser, not a pastor, he said. That's really interesting. Very interesting. By the way, 64.2% of the Catholics are in North and South the highest proportion of Catholics are in Americas. 1.4 billion Catholics globally. Many European countries are experiencing declines in membership, it says. Let me just play this for you. I mean, I got another video here about the challenges facing the church. Let's take a look at this real quick. Such an interesting topic. Let's see here. Here it is. All right, I'm going to show you right now a video from this article about the challenges facing the new pope. Here we go, from Reuters.
Whoever emerges from the coming conclave as the new leader of the $1.4 billion member Catholic Church will face a number of challenges. Among the pressing issues are a widening gap in Vatican finances, church attendees sliding in many Western countries, and difficult debates over issues like ordaining women as clergy and LGBTQ Catholic inclusion. The Vatican's financial crisis was one of Pope Francis's last headaches. 3 days before his last hospitalization in February, he ordered the creation of a new high-level commission to encourage donations. The Vatican is facing a budget shortfall and growing liabilities for its pension fund. Although it hasn't published a full budget report since 2022, the last set of accounts, approved in mid-2024, included a $94 million shortfall, according to two sources. The shortfall in the pension fund was estimated to total around $716 million by the Vatican's finance czar in 2022. There has been no official update to this figure, but several insiders told Reuters they believe it has ballooned. Across the world, the Catholic Church has grown slightly in membership in recent years. The highest proportion of Catholics are in the Americas, with 64.2% of the population and South America being baptized Catholic. Europe follows at 39.6%, Oceania with 25.9%. But generally, the rate of infant baptisms, a key indicator of growth for the faith, are highest in developing countries. Meanwhile, many European countries are experiencing declines. In terms of doctrinal disputes, Francis largely sought to open up the church to new conversations. Topics such as women's ordination, taboo for decades, were allowed to be debated. The Pope created two commissions to consider ordaining women as deacons. Francis also allowed for priests to bless same-sex couples on a case-by-case basis. His moves drew criticism from the conservative Catholics, including a few cardinals who feared he was watering down the faith. Some cardinals are now calling for a change of direction. Whoever emerges from the coming conclave...
Interesting. Some of the challenges facing the new cardinals. The new pope. One of our viewers said, who said this? One of our viewers said, Dr. McRib said maybe they should launch Pope Coin to help deal with their financial issues. Jeff Jackson says, wonder what they invest in. One of the articles we were reading was talking about how there was like money lost on some London building or something like that. Was that the article about Paraline we were reading before? Was it this one? There's this Reuters article on Paraline. Yeah, look down here. It says, another criticism is that under Paraline's watch, the Secretariat of State for the Vatican lost some $140 million on a botched investment in a London property. That's a whole other interesting topic, is their finances, which I know like nothing about. Mech thinks that Paraline would be a great pope. How soon will they know? I mean, maybe in the first couple days? It's not thought that it'll happen on the first ballot, so there's 4 votes on day 2. Darvo Maga thinks a bigot pope would turn many off from religion. Is there an American that could be pope? That's one thing we didn't get into. Like last week or something, we read an article about one of them. Let's see here. Burke and Tobin. Let's see here. Hold on a second. USA Today mentioned that there are 2 cardinals from America who would likely be discussed: Cardinal Joseph Tobin and Cardinal Raymond Burke. Are any of them? How are they on the poly market? Current betting odds. Burke is at 1% on the current betting odds. He's down here. Raymond Burke. Is Tobin even listed? I don't even see Tobin listed. I believe it's 4 votes a day after day 1. You never know, though. National Catholic Reporter thinks that Robert Prevost, who is U.S. born, has the best chance of making history in the conclave. I know nothing about him. It'd be interesting to learn more about all these different cardinals. Mark Boutel thinks Burke is from my area. It says Burke is from my area. Mark thinks he's too radical right. Oh, thank you, Robbie Carter. Robbie says destiny is already written for the next pope. Thank you, Robbie. That's really nice of you. All right. Anyways, look. There's all these. We could talk more about so much of this, but I think we've covered the basics. I think we've covered the basics here. So maybe I'll just summarize what's going to happen starting Wednesday. Quick summary. There's so much we didn't talk about. Now, this says, Reuters says, except for the first day when only 1 ballot is held, the Cardinals hold 2 daily balloting sessions until one candidate has a majority of 2/3 plus 1. But I believe each of the 2 sessions, there's 2 votes. Because I believe there's supposed to be 4 votes on the second day. Let me just confirm this. Yes, AP says 2 votes each morning and 2 votes each afternoon. So 4 votes a day. Oh, we didn't even... Michael Bridge said, did you see the movie Conclave and what's your thoughts on how much it might reflect what we see Wednesday? So I've almost watched the whole movie. But I'm not an expert on conclaves. I did have something, though, here about that real quick. Where is it? I had something about the show to show you. Hang on. Hang on a moment. I'll dig it up here. It's in one of a couple places. I don't see it there. Is it over here? Let's see. Let's see if I can find it over here. I would like to mention that. I'd forgotten to mention it before. Is this it? So there's an article in Reuters, forget the film, Vatican is preparing for the real conclave. The film, which won an Oscar in March for Best Adapted Screenplay, is a faithful representation in terms of costumes and staging. But the blatant scheming and the closing plot twist, which the article will not spoil, are too much, church experts say. The Italian bishop's newspaper said, let's face it, it's a highly entertaining film, but it is impossible not to smile at certain characters or situations that, especially in the eyes of Italian viewers, risk resembling involuntary parodies. U.S. Cardinal Sean O'Malley said, the business of electing a pope is not some sort of political backroom plotting of how to get your candidate elected. You know, I don't know. The other thing is like, look, you know, for those who've seen the movie, you know, it's like you just have these scenes where people are like scheming to try to get somebody elected. But maybe, I mean, look, I mean, maybe those kind of obvious conversations where like people are like meeting in the middle of the night in a hallway, maybe that doesn't happen. But I'm sure that it's just natural to think that people would do things to try to get elected or try to get their candidate elected. But it might not be, hey, let's go meet in the hallway at 2 a.m. the night before the vote. You know what I'm saying? So there could be stuff that's been going on for years, you know, and conversations that have been taking place for months. It's just so, you know, it's to say that, oh, they're not all meeting, they're not having an emergency meeting in the stairwell at 2 a.m. the night before the vote. That's not to say that people don't politic and you know, think of any organization you've been in. Think of a workplace you've worked at where it was thought that where people were trying to angle for promotions. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight. It can happen over a long period of time. You know. So I certainly think if it's a nice sort of the movie is a nice, if you know nothing about conclaves, it at least introduces you to the process, you know, of them all going in there and choosing from amongst themselves and have people having to change their votes. Sparkling Jewel says there's politicking in any situation. Again, I'm not an expert on how a conclave works, but you know, they're choosing from amongst themselves. I was trying to see if there's anything else about the show. Oh, look. Here's something else about it. AP has an article. Here's what it got right and long about real-life conclaves. I don't want to have any spoilers in here. But I just want to mention, oops, let me just kind of peek through here and see what it says. It says the movie excels at recreating the look and feel of a conclave. It says a lot of the scenery, the article says a lot of the scenery and the way it looks is accurate. One of the experts they talked to, AP, says they show a lot of the drama is around the pre-conclave conversations among cardinals. Also, one expert they talked to, AP, says the movie aligns with real-life expectations for a quick conclave. A long conclave, said a theology professor, historical theology professor, Massimo Fagioli, a long conclave would send the message of a church divided and possibly on the verge of a schism. The history of conclaves in the last century is really a story of short conclaves, he said. Oh, the ballots are not burned after each vote, but after each session, which is typically 2 votes. Okay. Also, they said that in the movie, one cardinal shows up just before the conclave, who was supposedly made a cardinal in secret by the Pope. But this expert that AP talked about, that they said that could not happen in real life, because if the name is not publicly announced by the Pope in the presence of the College of Cardinals, he has no right to attend a conclave. Okay. But this one expert told AP, the cardinals, the person they elect, they don't always know how that person's going to actually be as Pope. This expert told the AP, if the cardinals knew how Pope Francis would be once he was elected Pope Francis, many of them would not have voted for him. Oh, also, at one point, they say that one of the people in the movie received confession from somebody and then told about that confession to somebody else. And they said that person would have been excommunicated in real life. Okay. An expert told AP that the politicking was exaggerated in the movie. Fine. Also, interestingly, it says the movie errs in making cardinals either into liberal or progressive champions, said a professor at Catholic University of America, Kurt Martins. Those labels don't help us, he said. He said cardinals are very cautious in expressing their opinions, and even someone we think is a liberal cardinal is pretty conservative by secular standards. And he says anybody we would call extreme likely won't get enough votes because you need a 2/3 majority. Anyways, that's just for those of you who've seen Conclave. That's an art. I just summarized this article by AP about what the movie gets right or wrong. You can look it up on the web. So you saw Conclave, the movie. Here's what it got right and wrong about real life conclaves. Anyways, all right, guys. Let me take a few more comments here. This stream has gone longer than I thought it would, but I enjoyed doing it. And I think it's a really interesting topic, so I'm glad we were able to do a preview of it. And I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface. We kind of blew through everything, even though it's been on for a while. Yaya Mooney says there are political meetings today and tomorrow. Prospering Woman says the interior structure of the Catholic Church is very political. Beans and Bacon says kind of interesting in the timing of that film. I think it's an entertaining movie, and if you get a chance, I think if you're into this topic of the real conclave, I think it's very interesting to watch. Just don't think that like literally everything is just totally accurate, but I think it's very neat to see it. It's neat to just see them sitting in the Sistine Chapel with all the amazing artwork in there. Let's see here. Read a few more comments here. Thanks, LT, for subscribing, by the way, over there on Facebook. Ruth says it was just a movie. Yeah, so you have to get everything in a couple hours. Tracy thought it was a very good movie. What do they eat? Is there catering? In the movie, there's food. I mean, I'm sure there's food provided for them, but I don't know exactly what they'll eat. Showed them cooking food in the movie. Tracy, yeah, so a number of our viewers like Tracy like the Two Popes too. I'm going to try to watch that too. All right, I think it might be our time. This was a little bit of a different stream. We weren't covering something actively breaking at the moment, but I think it's an important topic. I think it's a super interesting topic. So we're going to wrap up this. Stream. But so again, the first, as I understand it, the first vote is expected. We're supposed to see smoke on Wednesday evening, Italy time. Well, Vatican City time, sorry. Vatican City is surrounded by Rome, but it's its own, what do you call it? Like a state? But around 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays when we're supposed to get the first smoke. Although it's widely expected they will not agree on someone in the first vote. But I'd like to be on the air for it anyway. So Mark Boutel says Black Smoke Wednesday. That's what it thought it will be. It's a landlocked, technically, Wikipedia calls it a country. So country. Yes, people are saying it's a country, which I believe you're right. I mean, maybe different people define countries different ways. I said state. So, but yes, it's its own political unit. So, sorry. Google calls it a city-state. Anyways, however you want to refer to it. Encyclopedia Britannica calls it an ecclesiastical state. My plan is to come on the air on Wednesday before the first vote. And we'll talk about this some and we'll watch the smoke come out. Assuming the smoke is black, my understanding is that the next vote, the next couple votes would be around like 4:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern time. So I'd like to come on for that. It might get kind of crazy, but I'd like to be on for the votes on Thursday. But one of them could be like really early in the morning, and then the other one would be like midday Eastern time. So, anyways, keep an eye out. And if I may leave, the thing is, I don't know if it's worth leaving. If I think we have a good idea of when these votes are going to happen, I'm not going to leave a camera up of the chimney the whole time because you're not going to see anything. So I'm going to try to be on day 2 for the various votes because there's like a decent chance that one of those votes 2 through 5 on day 2 we'll see white smoke. It would be very cool to be on the air when that happens. So I'm trying to do that, but we'll see. Anyways, I really appreciate people watching, for tuning into our conclave preview. I mean, I don't know when the next conclave is going to be, so, this might be our only conclave coverage in a while. Jimmy ZNJ says it's part of history. Thomas Darwin says it'll be interesting. I might have to read up on some of the other candidates, so. I'd like to read up on some of the other candidates. So it'd be neat to, when the person comes out as Pope and they're revealed, that you're like, oh, I know who that person is. Thanks Jack's Animals for subscribing, by the way. And Dark Crypto for the bits, Dark Crypto 800. I really appreciate people tuning in. If there's big news before then, obviously, on other topics, we'll report on it. But it's a super interesting topic. So, subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda. If you missed earlier in the broadcast, we talked about a bunch of different topics on this broadcast related to the conclave, so feel free to rewind and skim through. And but yeah, subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda, and we have a notifications system that we've set up that will send you a notification whenever we go live about any story, because I don't know when big news is going to happen. But we have a notification system that'll send you a notification when we go live. Sign up. It's free. We do it through Discord. The mods will post a link to the notifications in the chat. And you can also find that notifications link in the YouTube and Facebook description of this video. And Thanks also for writing, for those people who are in the chat. I appreciate participating in the chat. I read a bunch of comments today. I really appreciate you guys letting me read your comments. Sorry I can't read all of them, but I was trying to read a bunch of them. Kelev Ra sent me something that I think that's Kelev Ra thinks that Nostradamus had some prediction about this. That's what Kelev said. I'm not going to get into that right now. There's a Pope prophecy. It's a whole other topic. Thanks, Kelev, for sending that in, though. I appreciate it. Kelev Ra. And hey, I want to shout out our moderators, too. Let's shout out our moderators. Our moderators are awesome. They are the reason that we can have chats in our broadcasts, and we even on like topics where people there's sometimes some controversy. And so I really appreciate our moderators. Let me thank them. People like Ruth Krafasi, Beth Mythical over there on YouTube. Thanks for moderating. All of our other YouTube moderators, thank you. Linda Belk, Larry, Misha on X, over on Facebook, Christina Neal, Paul Anderson, Kay Lowry, Body. And thanks, Suzanne Berry, for your comment over there on Facebook. Also, our Twitch moderators like Bash and Girl, Big Ball of Yarn, Cerero, David Green, Matthew Kohai 3, and Surly Div. Thanks, Betty Lou. I'm glad you like the coverage. Let's see here. Hey, and thanks. A bunch of people donated. That's super nice of you guys. That's what allows the channel to exist, is your support. So I really appreciate that. I think I thanked everybody. If you ever want to donate to the channel, you can go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But thanks so much for your support. Hey, also, what was I going to mention? Oh, we have a chat. You can chat with other viewers when we're not on the air. It's free. We do it through Discord. A lot of our viewers like doing that. Check it out. It's the same. The link to the chat's the same as the link to the free notifications. So check out our Discord chat. Thanks to our Discord moderators for all you do. Much appreciated. Hey, I'll post up if I hear about updates about this or other stories. I will post it on my X account, which is @Lookner on X, @LOOKNER. I post a bunch of breaking news stuff over there, so follow me over there. Also, another great way to find out when we're going live, follow Agenda Free TV on X. I always post there when we're going live. I post updates about the channel @Agenda Free TV. So you can follow over there if you'd like. And hey, if you're all watching on YouTube, make sure you turn on the YouTube notifications so you can get the notifications from YouTube when we're live. To do that, what you need to do, you need to subscribe to the channel, subscribe, and then you need to click the bell and choose all notifications. Subscribe, click the bell, and choose all notifications. Shout out to our Facebook subscribers who support the channel over there. Oh, Margaret Riley is moderating too. Thank you so much, Margaret. Such as, thank you, LT, for subscribing. Jennifer Ellers, thanks for subscribing. Robert Rial II. Kayla Ribati, Margaret Riley. Thanks so much to all of our Facebook and all of our other Facebook subscribers. Thank you. Our Twitch subscribers, shout out to all of you like Jack's Animals, Massachusetts Guy. Hey, Massachusetts Guy, thanks for the gift sub. That's really nice of you. Over there on Twitch. Chi-Town Bear, thanks for subscribing. Big Ball of Yarn. Annie Cush. And Ellie Travels. Matthew Kohai 3, Stunned in the North. Thank you for subscribing. Wall Street and Shaggy. Thank you. And all of our other Twitch subscribers and our YouTube members like Joe Hart, Ken Lance, Raven Knight, Tracy. Tracy says going to do some research tonight on the front runners. I got to do that too. Sevenfold, thanks for being here. And thanks for being a member. CAC813, thanks for being a member. Pat W., Warren Tinsley, Chris N., Gary Baines, Dr. McRib, Betsy by the Sea, Sivlap, Rick Hoppy, Alfredo Gonzalez, Mona L., thanks for being members, Storm Laughter, Ray, NY Committee, Mark Boutel, Raven Knight, and all of our other viewers. Jen Madison, for example. Appreciate everybody being here. Alyssa. Yes, Gloria Patri. I'm planning on covering the vote on Wednesday. All right, guys. Thanks, Aaron Weirdo, for watching. Zoobird, OJ Sampson on Twitch. Melissa Terry. Stasha Morgan. Stasha recommends Conclave as well. All right, guys, that is it. Stasha says Conclave is on Peacock as well. Maybe it's on other... I know it's on Prime Video. It might be on other places as well. All right, guys. Thanks, Braden Co. for watching from New Zealand. Dr. Bologna. And that is it for now. So I really appreciate you being here. The first vote will be... The first smoke is supposed to be... It's Wednesday at around, because they're supposed to have the first vote. It's supposed to be one vote on Wednesday. Wednesday evening local time, as I understand it, around 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. So I'd like to be on for that. But I'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully we can get on see some of the smoke on Wednesday and Thursday. All right. No, I'm in the U.S. right now. I am back from Peru. That is it for now. Thanks so much for watching our preview. I had fun talking about this with you. And we will see you soon with more live coverage of breaking news right here at Agenda Free TV.